Peter and the Pocket Guide to Hunting Vampires and Other Demon-like Creatures. Episode 5, Stakeout by Rich von Holt. The amphitheater plunged into darkness, the air heavy with anticipation. From the shadows, vampire men and women emerged, black garments flowing like liquid night. Each held a skull mask before their face, forming a sinister horseshoe behind the mortal woman, who stood unaware at the center of the stage. As she turned, the masks came into view, and terror seized her. "I don't want to die!" Her panicked gaze darted around the theater, desperate for escape. In the audience, Peter's eyes widened, his breath catching in his throat. The Grim Reaper, now unmasked, swooned with arms crossed over his chest, as if hopelessly in love. "We are death!" his voice boomed, echoing off the stone walls. The mortal woman stepped forward to the edge of the stage, bathed in the glare of the footlights. "Someone help me. Please!" Her voice quaked. "What have I done?" The Reaper gestured to the audience with a sweeping skeletal hand. "We all die. Death is the one thing you share with all those here." Peter shot to his feet, chair clattering behind him as he stormed out of the amphitheater. The night air hit him like a slap, his lungs heaving to pull in breath. Memories of his father's death crashed over him in suffocating waves. Footsteps pounded behind him. "Did it scare you?" Lily asked, catching up to him. "The whole death thing with the Grim Reaper." He shook his head. "Got me thinking about my dad. It was just a lot." Lily stepped closer, her hands smoothing over the bright pattern of his Hawaiian shirt. Rising on tiptoe, she pressed her lips to his. For a moment, the kiss drowned out the noise in his head. A car horn blared, shattering the spell. Peter pulled back, looking over to see Pete waiting in the idling vehicle. Reality crashed back in, and with it, the weight of his grief. Pete gripped the steering wheel as the mob car sliced through the night. Beside him, Peter shifted uneasily in the passenger seat. "Where are we going?" he asked, suspicion lacing his tone. "The cave." Pete's reply hung ominous in the air between them. He fiddled with the radio, seeking distraction, and settled on Frank Sinatra's Stranger in the Night. "Oh, this is good," he remarked with forced cheer. Peter's brow furrowed. "I'm not going back there. Take me home." "It's not going to be like last time," Pete assured him, but Peter's agitation only grew. "I don't care. That place scared the shit out of me," Pete sighed. "It's not that bad, Peter." "Is not that bad?" Peter's voice pitched higher. "We hauled dead bodies from a dumpster to the trunk of this car, then chopped them up." He paused, a morbid thought striking him. "By the way, how did you get that smell out?" "Peter, we've been doing this along—" "Never mind that. I'm not going." Peter cut him off. Silence stretched taut for a beat before he spoke again. "Why couldn't the bodies just have been buried instead of being chopped up?" Pete's jaw clenched. "I don't know. Sandor insisted. They were doing it before, but now we have to do it." "Pete, take me home." Peter's demand rang out, tinged with desperation. "Relax, Peter. We're just picking up a package." Pete attempted to placate him. "Then why do you need me?" "I don't like to go alone." Peter's eyes narrowed. "Where's the other guys?" "They left when you left and I got the call. I knew where you were, so there you go." "There you go, huh?" Peter shook his head. "I'm not trying to get killed." "We're not going to get killed. They like us. We help them out a lot." Pete's assurances sounded hollow even to his own ears. "We'll see about that," Peter muttered darkly. "Peter, come on. Let's just enjoy this long ride and listen to the music." Pete cranked up the volume, Frank Sinatra's crooning filling the car. As they sped away from the city lights, Peter's voice drifted over the music. "I never liked Old Blue Eyes." "Blasphemy," Pete retorted, forcing a grin. He began to sing along. "Strangers in the night, two lonely people. We were strangers in the night." The mob car raced onward, descending into darkness as it wound its way downhill, the city a distant memory behind them. 30 miles stretched out, desolate and foreboding, before the looming maw of the cave finally came into view. The mob car rolled to a stop before a small hill, a pile of rocks stacked against its base forming a makeshift entrance. Pete and Peter exited the vehicle, their footsteps crunching on the gravel as they approached the cave. Peter's gaze drifted to the left, where a line of parked cars stretched into the darkness. One in particular snagged his attention. "Hey, that looks like my dad's car." "What do you mean?" Pete asked, brow furrowing. "The car over there." Peter jabbed a finger towards the vehicle in question. Pete squinted into the gloom. "What are you talking about, Peter?" "Why do you think I'm taking the bus?" Peter's voice edged with frustration. "I assumed you don't know how to drive," Pete replied, shrugging. "I do." The car was gone the next day. Peter's words hung heavy in the air between them. "Maybe it was towed," Pete offered, but doubt flickered in his eyes. Peter shook his head. "I called. They didn't have it." Their conversation shattered as a figure emerged from the cave. "Oh shit! Here comes Sandor!" Pete hissed under his breath. Sandor strode towards them, his white lace cut-off shirt and black leather pants a jarring contrast to the rough-hewn stone surrounding them. "Gentlemen," he greeted, a black cloth dangling from each hand. "What's this, Sandor?" Pete asked, wariness creeping into his tone. "New protocol." Sandor's reply was clipped, his expression inscrutable. Pete and Peter exchanged a glance, surprise and unease mirrored in their eyes. The night air seemed to thicken around them, the weight of the unknown pressing down like a physical force. Whatever lay ahead in the depths of that cave, they were certain it would be far from routine. Peter and Pete stumbled through the cave's entrance, black cloths obscuring their vision. Pete's hand gripped Sandor's shoulder, while Peter trailed behind, his fingers clutching Pete's shirt. Faint candlelight flickered through the fabric of Peter's blindfold, casting eerie shadows on the stone walls. As they entered the main chamber, a low, humming chant filled the air, echoing off the circular walls. Sandor's voice cut through the melody. "Wait here." His footsteps receded into the darkness. "Pete," Peter whispered, his voice barely audible over the droning song. "Yeah," Pete breathed back. "What the hell?" "I don't know. Be quiet." Pete's words were terse, laced with tension. Peter shifted uneasily. "Can you see anything?" "No." "Can you?" "Yeah, a little." Peter adjusted his blindfold, peering through the gaps in the fabric. "Well, what do you see?" Peter squinted, straining to make out the scene before him. "Hold on, let me look." He released his grip on Pete, fingers working to widen the slit in the cloth. "I see a tall, bald guy walking in a circle." "That's Dasko," Pete hissed. "He's the leader." "There's a guy kneeling in front of him," Peter continued, his voice trembling slightly. Abruptly, the chanting ceased. In the sudden silence, Dasko lunged forward, his teeth sinking into the neck of the kneeling man. Blood spurted, glistening in the candlelight. "Holy hell!" Peter's shout shattered the stillness. "Peter!" Pete's reprimand was drowned out by the sound of footsteps racing towards them. Dasko's eyes, feral and glowing, snapped up to meet Peter's through the holes in his blindfold. From the shadows, a woman emerged, her face pale and ethereal. Milena. Sandor materialized beside them, his hands clamping down on their arms with brutal force. The brothers struggled against his grip, but it was useless. They were trapped, at the mercy of the monsters that surrounded them. Sandor shoved Pete and Peter into the dimly lit chamber, his grip on their arms unrelenting. "Guys, you must never make a sound," he warned, his voice a menacing hiss. Pete squared his shoulders, defiance flashing in his eyes. "Let's just get what we came here for, and let us go." With a swift tug, Sandor removed their blindfolds. "Wait here," he commanded before stalking out of the room, leaving the brothers alone in the flickering candlelight. Peter's gaze darted around the space, taking in the rich, wood furniture and plush, red cushions trimmed with gold. They stood before an imposing desk, two chairs positioned in front like an offering. Uncertainty hung thick in the air between them. "What are we doing here?" Peter's question was barely a whisper. Pete shook his head. "I don't know. I was told they have something for us." A thunderous boom shattered the tense silence. Both men whirled to face the door, hearts pounding in their chests. "Gentlemen!" The voice, smooth as silk, sent a chill down Peter's spine. Dasco, resplendent in Victorian finery, stood behind the desk, his sudden appearance as jarring as a specter. "Dasco," Pete acknowledged, his tone carefully neutral. "Please, have a seat." Dasco gestured to the chairs, an invitation that felt more like a command. As they settled into the proffered seats, Peter found himself transfixed by Dasco's elongated fingernails, their sharp points glinting in the candlelight. Dasco lowered himself into the high-backed, tufted chair, the red fabric seeming to bleed into the shadows. With deliberate movements, he opened the bottom drawer, rummaging for a moment before withdrawing a small wooden box. He placed it on the desk, the thunk of wood against wood echoing in the stillness. "So, I was told, your family." Dasco's gaze locked onto Peter, the question hanging heavy in the air. Peter swallowed hard. "Me?" Dasco's stare intensified, boring into him with unnerving focus. Peter glanced at Pete, seeking reassurance, before clearing his throat. "Yeah, something like that." He met Dasco's eyes once more. "Our dads grew up together." Dasco slid the box towards Pete. "This is for your family. A little appreciation for some of the obstacles we've been having." "It's no problem, really," Pete insisted, but Dasco cut him off. "I insist." Pete nodded, accepting the offering. "Thank you." As Pete's fingers closed around the box, Sandor reappeared, blindfolds in hand. "Sorry about the covers," Dasco apologized, his tone anything but contrite. "There are some things that we like to keep private." Sandor secured the fabric over Pete's eyes first, then turned to Peter. "I'm sure I'll be seeing you again," Dasco remarked, his words carrying an undercurrent of dark promise. As the blindfold descended, obscuring Peter's vision, Dasco's voice echoed in the darkness. "Goodbye, gentlemen." And with that, they were plunged back into a world of shadows, the weight of Dasco's cryptic gift heavy in their hands. In the main chamber, Sandor shoved Peter and Pete forward, his hands pressing against their backs as they stumbled into the outer ring of the circular room. Peter, positioned on the left, couldn't resist sneaking a glance at the man who had been savagely bitten mere moments before. He watched in morbid fascination as the transformation took hold, the man's dull, human features shifting, morphing into something pale and unnaturally beautiful. A vampire, newly born. Sandor spun the brothers around, marching them towards the cave's entrance. As they passed Dasco, Peter caught a glimpse of the leader murmuring to Milena, his words barely audible over the pounding of his own heart. "Keep the new one company for the night." The cool night air hit Peter's face as they emerged from the cave, the blindfolds ripped away by Sandor's rough hands. "Okay, boys, we'll see you next time." His tone was almost friendly, a jarring contrast to the horrors they had just witnessed. Sandor wheeled on Peter, invading his personal space until their noses nearly touched. "Shh!" The sound was drawn out, a sinister warning. "Whatever you've seen, you keep it to yourself." With that, Sandor turned on his heel and stalked back into the darkness of the cave, leaving Pete and Peter alone in the shadows. Pete wasted no time, hurrying to the trunk of the mob car and placing the wooden box inside with shaking hands. The lid slammed shut, the sound echoing like a gunshot in the stillness. Unbeknownst to the brothers, Milena watched from the driver's seat of their father's car, her eyes tracking their every move. As they climbed into their vehicle and backed away, tires spitting gravel, she waited, a predator biding her time. The mob car disappeared into the night, and Milena revved the engine, preparing to give chase. The hunt was on, and she had her sights set on the two men who had stumbled into a world they couldn't begin to understand. The mob car sliced through the night, Pete's hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel. Beside him, Peter sat in silence, his mind reeling from the horrors they had witnessed. "Do you want to know what's in the box?" Pete's question shattered the quiet, his voice tight with tension. "Nope." Peter's reply was curt, his gaze fixed on the darkness beyond the windshield. Pete glanced at him, curiosity warring with unease. "You're not curious? Not even a little?" "Nope." "Okay." Pete let the matter drop, but the silence stretched between them, heavy with the weight of the unknown. Did you see anything else when we were leaving? Peter hesitated, Dasko's piercing stare flashing through his mind. Not really. Dasko was staring at me. Dasko? Pete's eyebrows shot up, surprise etched on his features. Yeah. Peter shifted in his seat, discomfort prickling his skin. The guy he bit was squirming all over the floor. The guy he bit? Pete's voice rose, incredulity mixing with horror. Yeah. Peter swallowed hard, the image seared into his brain. I wonder if he was dying. Pete shook his head, his grip tightening on the wheel. I don't know. Maybe. But then why would it be like a ceremony? Peter mused, his thoughts racing. They were probably initiating a new one of them, Pete suggested, the words bitter on his tongue. Great. More vampires. Peter's attempt at levity fell flat, the reality of their situation too grim to joke about. Pete forced a chuckle, the sound hollow in the confines of the car. I just want to go home, Peter murmured, exhaustion seeping into his bones. Unbeknownst to the brothers, Milena tracked their every move from the driver's seat of their father's car, her headlights extinguished as she trailed behind them like a wraith. Peter burst through the front door of his home, barely registering his mother's presence as he rushed past her recliner. Peter! She called out, concern lacing her voice. Peter, is everything all right? He didn't answer, his feet carrying him to the sanctuary of his bedroom. The door slammed shut behind him, and he sagged against it, his heart hammering in his chest. Eyes squeezed shut, he fought to regain control, his breaths coming in ragged gasps. With shaking hands, he snatched the pocket guide to hunting vampires and other demon-like creatures from his desk, flipping frantically through the pages until he found the section titled Vampire Initiation. His fingers skimmed the text, stopping on the word ceremony. The initiation ceremony starts off with a low hum to call the spirits of the underworld, he read aloud, his voice trembling. Once the spirits have entered the room, the person is bitten by the vampire. The person will then transform into a vampire. The screams are not from the transformation, but from the demonic spirits also drinking their blood. The book tumbled from his grasp, landing on the desk with a thud. Numb, Peter stripped off his clothes, letting them fall in a heap on the floor. He crawled into bed, burrowing under the covers like a child seeking protection from the monsters that lurked in the dark. As he lay there, staring at the wall, a figure materialized at his window. Milena, her eyes glinting in the moonlight, watched him, a predator observing her prey. And in that moment, Peter felt the icy fingers of fear wrap around his heart, the realization that the nightmare was far from over.